Most people think they know Cleopatra. They picture a beautiful woman. They see her arriving in Rome on a golden barge. They imagine her seducing powerful men to get what she wants. This image comes from movies and plays. It is a story of romance, beauty, betrayal. For centuries, poets, painters have told this version of her tale. They have made her a symbol of dangerous love and exotic charm. This famous queen has become more of a character in a drama than a real person from history. Her story has been retold so many times that the fiction has started to feel like fact. But what if this picture is mostly wrong? What if the real Cleopatra was very different? The popular stories often forget one important thing. Cleopatra was a powerful and intelligent ruler. She was a queen who governed a rich kingdom for more than 20 years. She was a mother who fought to protect her children's future. She was a skilled politician who navigated a dangerous world. Her life was not just about love affairs. It was about power survival and the difficult task of leading her people in a time of great change and conflict. The stories we know often leave out the most impressive parts of her reign. The myths about Cleopatra began a long time ago. They were started by her enemies, the Romans. After she died, Roman writers wanted to make her look bad. They wanted to justify their conquest of her kingdom, Egypt. So they wrote stories that portrayed her as a wicked and manipulative foreign woman. They said she used her beauty to corrupt good Roman men like Julius Caesar, Mark Antony. This version of events made Rome look strong and virtuous. It turned Cleopatra into a convenient villain. These Roman accounts were very biased, but they became the main source of information about her for centuries. This Roman propaganda was incredibly effective. It has shaped how we see Cleopatra even today. Shakespeare wrote his famous play based on these Roman sources. Hollywood movies have repeated the same themes of seduction and tragedy. As a result, the real woman has been buried under layers of myth. We remember the siren of the Nile, but we forget the skilled diplomat. We remember the tragic lover, but we forget the commander of armies and navies. Separating the myth from the reality is a difficult but important task. Only by looking past the legends can we start to understand the true story of the last queen of Egypt. To find the real Cleopatra, we must look beyond the familiar tales. We need to become historical detectives. Our clues are not found in epic poems or modern films. Instead, they are hidden in ancient objects and writings. We can look at coins that were made during her reign. These coins show her face, not as a great beauty, but as a strong and authoritative ruler. Her profile often looks more like her father's, emphasizing her rightful claim to the throne. A clear political statement. She was a legitimate and powerful pharaoh in the Ptolemaic dynasty. Other clues come from the land she ruled. Archaeologists have found inscriptions and official documents from her time. These papers, written on papyrus, tell us about her government. They show her making decisions about taxes, trade, the law. They reveal a monarch involved in the daily business of her kingdom. She was not just sitting on a throne wearing jewels. She was an active administrator working to keep her country prosperous and stable. These records paint a picture of a competent, hard-working leader, very different from the lazy seductress of Roman stories. Re-examining ancient historians helps. Many Roman writers were hostile, but some offer valuable details. Plutarch, writing a century later, used sources now lost. Read carefully, and his work contradicts simple myths. He says her greatest charm was not looks, but her voice and brilliant conversation. He describes her intelligence and her ability to speak many languages. These details suggest a woman who impressed powerful men with her mind, an equal, a politician they could respect. Understanding myth versus reality is crucial. The story is more than an ancient romance. It's about a powerful leader trying to save her empire from Rome. Her struggle tells us about politics, propaganda, and how history is written by the winners. By separating fact from fiction, we don't lose a story, we gain a better one. we discover a more complex, intelligent, impressive human being. Her real life is far more interesting than the legends. Cleopatra was born into a world of immense wealth and danger. She was part of the Ptolemaic dynasty. This was a Greek royal family that had ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. Her ancestor, Ptolemy I Soter, was a general for Alexander the Great. Alexander died, and his vast empire was divided among his top commanders. Ptolemy took Egypt, the richest prize. He made the vibrant city of Alexandria his capital. The Ptolemies were not Egyptian by blood. They were Macedonians. They brought their Greek language and culture with them. They ruled as pharaohs but remained a foreign dynasty. This mix of Greek culture and Egyptian culture was central to Cleopatra's identity. She was raised in a palace that was a center of Greek learning and art. But she lived in a country with ancient Egyptian traditions. Cleopatra understood the importance of connecting with her Egyptian subjects. The Ptolemaic family was known for internal conflicts. Brothers and sisters fought for the throne. Poison was a common political tool. Cleopatra grew up watching these power struggles. She learned early that survival required intelligence, ruthlessness, and a deep understanding of power. Her father's reign was unstable and marked by rebellion. Her father was King Ptolemy Thuthene Auletes. His nickname, Auletes, meant the flute player, not a compliment. It suggested he preferred parties and music over governing. He was a weak ruler who depended on Rome's support. To secure Rome's backing, he paid huge bribes to Roman politicians. This made him unpopular in Alexandria. People saw him as a puppet of a foreign power, draining the treasury. The people drove him out of the city and into exile. During his absence, Cleopatra's older sister Berenice IV took the throne. Young Cleopatra learned a harsh lesson about power. A ruler who lost popular support could lose everything. When their father returned with a Roman army, he had Berenice executed. Cleopatra, still a child, saw the brutal consequences of family rivalry. She learned power was not guaranteed by birthright. It had to be seized and defended, sometimes against your own flesh and blood. This environment shaped her into the determined and ambitious leader she would become. Cleopatra received the best education possible in the ancient world. She grew up in Alexandria, home to the greatest library of its time. The Library of Alexandria was a legendary center of knowledge. It attracted scholars. It attracted scientists. It attracted philosophers. Cleopatra was likely tutored by some of the finest minds of her age. She studied a wide range of subjects: mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, medicine. Her education was not just for show. It was a vital part of her training to become a ruler. A Ptolemaic queen was expected to be a patron of learning and culture. Her studies in rhetoric, oratory. She learned how to construct persuasive arguments and speak eloquently. This skill would prove essential in negotiations with powerful Roman leaders. Ancient writers, even enemies, praised her intelligence and her captivating conversation. Unlike the myth of a silent beauty, the real Cleopatra could hold her own in any debate. She didn't just use looks to get her way. She used her sharp intellect and her command of language. These were her most powerful political weapons. One of her most remarkable skills was her ability with languages. Plutarch says she rarely needed an interpreter. She could speak to many people in their native tongues. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler in 3 centuries to learn Egyptian. This was a brilliant political move. It showed respect for her subjects and their ancient culture. It helped her connect with priests and the common people. She also spoke Greek, Parthian languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and others. This linguistic talent was a tool of statecraft. When ambassadors came, she could speak to them directly. It let her build personal relationships and conduct diplomacy with great skill. It gave her a significant advantage over rulers who relied on translators. Her education was designed to create a complete monarch, trained to rule, to lead, to persuade, and to understand the complex world. This formidable intellect, combined with her ambition, made her a force to be reckoned with. Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, died in the spring of 51 BC. In his will, he named his eldest surviving children as his joint heirs. Cleopatra, then about 18 years old, was to rule alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10. This was a common arrangement in the Ptolemaic dynasty. The siblings were also expected to marry each other, another tradition meant to keep power within the family. From the very beginning, however, it was clear Cleopatra had no intention of being a junior partner. She was ambitious and confident in her ability to rule alone. She was ready to take charge. In the early days of their reign, Cleopatra moved quickly to assert her authority. She put her name and she put her face on official documents and on coins alone. The traditional practice was for the male ruler's name to come first. By omitting her brother's name, she was making a bold statement. She was signaling to the court and to the people of Egypt that she was the senior ruler. She was the one in command. This did not sit well with the powerful courtiers who surrounded her young brother. A group of influential men, including a general and Ptolemy XIII's tutor, saw Cleopatra as a threat to their own power. These men began to plot against her. They wanted to control the young king and rule through him. They saw Cleopatra's independence and her intelligence as a danger to their plans. They started to turn her brother against her and work to undermine her position at court. The political situation in Alexandria became tense and dangerous. The palace was filled with intrigue and conspiracy. Cleopatra found herself increasingly isolated. She had the title of queen, but her actual power was slipping away. The men controlling her brother had the support of the palace guard and parts of the army. The conflict finally came to a head. The courtiers made their move against her. They used their influence over the army to force her out of the capital. Around 49 BC, Cleopatra was driven from Alexandria. She was forced to flee eastward into the deserts of Syria. She was a queen in exile, stripped of her throne and her home. But Cleopatra was not defeated. She was a daughter of the Ptolemies, and she had inherited their resilience and their fighting spirit. Instead of accepting her fate, she began to gather an army. She was determined to fight her way back to power and reclaim her kingdom. Forced from her own capital, Cleopatra did not despair. She proved herself to be a resourceful leader and a determined one. In the arid lands east of Egypt, she used her family's old connections. She used her own diplomatic skills. She began recruiting soldiers, forming a mercenary army to challenge her brother's forces. An incredibly bold move for a young woman in the ancient world. She refused to be rescued by a powerful man. She was taking her destiny into her own hands. Her goal: march back to Egypt, defeat her brother's advisors, take back her throne. While she built her army, a larger conflict shook the Mediterranean. A civil war raged in Rome. Julius Caesar, Pompey the Great. That Roman war would spill into Egypt. Pompey fled to Egypt after defeat. He sought refuge with young Ptolemy the Fiend. The king's advisors saw an opportunity. They planned to kill Pompey to win Caesar's favor. A terrible miscalculation. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, he was shown Pompey's severed head. Caesar was horrified and angry. He stayed in Alexandria to settle the throne dispute. He saw a chance to assert Roman authority and seize Egypt's wealth. Caesar summoned Cleopatra and her brother. He would judge who should rule. This was Cleopatra's chance. She knew she could not come openly. Her brother's soldiers controlled the city. She needed a secret way in. One of her most famous moves followed. Plutarch says a servant wrapped her in bedding, or in a carpet. The servant carried the bundle past enemy guards, delivered it to Caesar's private quarters. The carpet unrolled. Cleopatra appeared. The daring entrance captured Caesar's attention. It proved she was no ordinary monarch. Cleopatra's dramatic arrival in Caesar's rooms was a calculated political move. It was designed to bypass her enemies and gain a direct audience with the most powerful man in the world. She did not come to him as a defeated exile begging for help. She presented herself as a rightful queen demanding justice. Caesar, who was 52 years old at the time, was immediately impressed. He was a shrewd judge of character, and he saw in the 21-year-old Cleopatra a spirit that matched his own. He saw her intelligence. He saw her courage. He saw her fierce ambition. He had come to Egypt to settle a provincial dispute, but he found a monarch who was his equal in political skill and determination. Their meeting was not just about personal chemistry. It was an urgent political negotiation. Cleopatra needed Caesar's military power to regain her throne. Caesar needed Cleopatra's cooperation to secure Egypt's resources. Egypt was the breadbasket of the Mediterranean. Its grain supply was vital to feeding the population of Rome. Its treasury was also legendary. He listened to her arguments and reviewed her father's will. He agreed that she was the legitimate co-ruler and that her brother's advisors had illegally driven her from power. This decision set the stage for a direct confrontation. The advisors of Ptolemy XIII were furious when they learned that Cleopatra had reached Caesar. They saw their influence over the throne evaporating. They decided to fight. Their army, which vastly outnumbered Caesar's small force, besieged the royal palace in Alexandria, where Caesar and Cleopatra were staying. This conflict became known as the Alexandrian War. For several months, Caesar's veteran legions fought against the forces loyal to Ptolemy XIII in the streets of the capital. It was a difficult and bloody struggle. During the fighting, parts of the city were burned, and it is possible that a portion of the great library of Alexandria was damaged. Cleopatra was not a passive observer during this war. She was at the center of the conflict, advising Caesar and using her knowledge of the city and its politics to their advantage. She was fighting for her crown and her life. In the end, Caesar's military genius and the arrival of Roman reinforcements decided the outcome. Ptolemy XIII's army was defeated in a final battle near the Nile. The young king tried to flee, but his boat capsized, and he drowned in the river. With her brother and his key advisors gone, Cleopatra's path to the throne was clear. Thanks to her daring plan and her strategic alliance with Caesar, she had won. She was once again the undisputed queen of Egypt. Section 2. The Queen and the Dictator. After the war, Caesar restored Cleopatra to the throne. To maintain the tradition of the Ptolemaic dynasty, he did not make her a sole ruler. Instead, he had her marry her youngest brother, Ptolemy XIV, who was only about 12 years old. However, this was just a formality. Everyone understood that the real power belonged to Cleopatra alone. Her young brother husband was a king in name only. Cleopatra was now firmly in control of her kingdom, backed by the authority and the military might of Rome. Her alliance with Caesar had been a spectacular success, securing her position in a way that would have been impossible on her own. Their relationship, however, went beyond politics. During the months they spent together in the palace, Cleopatra and Caesar became lovers. In 47 BC, shortly after the war ended, Cleopatra gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy Caesar, but he was known to everyone as Caesarion, or Little Caesar. This child was incredibly important. For Cleopatra, he was a living symbol of her connection to Rome's most powerful man. He strengthened her position and provided a potential heir who had the blood of both the Ptolemies and the great Julius Caesar. For Caesar, the child was a more complicated matter, as he already had a legal Roman heir. After securing her rule, Cleopatra invited Caesar on a magnificent journey up the Nile River. They traveled on a grand royal barge, accompanied by a fleet of hundreds of other ships. This was not just a romantic holiday. It was a carefully planned political spectacle. The tour allowed Cleopatra to show off the wealth and the ancient splendors of her kingdom. It also served as a victory lap, presenting herself to her people as their triumphant queen, accompanied by her powerful Roman ally. For the people along the Nile, it was a clear demonstration that their pharaoh had the backing of the new master of the Mediterranean world. In 46 BC, Cleopatra traveled to Rome at Caesar's invitation. She arrived with her young son Caesarion and a large entourage. Caesar installed her in a luxurious villa on the outskirts of the city. Her presence in Rome caused a sensation and a scandal. Many conservative Romans were shocked that Caesar, who was already married to a Roman woman, was openly honoring a foreign queen. He even placed a golden statue of Cleopatra in the temple of Venus Genitrix, the mythical ancestor of his own family. This move was seen as deeply inappropriate and fueled fears that he wanted to become a king, with Cleopatra as his queen. Section 3. Ruling Egypt. Cleopatra's relationship with Rome was crucial, but she was not just a client queen focused on foreign affairs. She was an active and engaged ruler of her own country. After returning from Rome following Caesar's assassination, she focused on governing Egypt. The kingdom she inherited had been weakened by decades of mismanagement under her father. The economy was struggling. There had been several years of poor harvests due to insufficient flooding of the Nile. Cleopatra implemented policies aimed at restoring Egypt's prosperity. Unlike the myths that portray her as lazy and decadent, historical records show a hands-on administrator who was deeply involved in the economic life of her country. She worked to reform the administration, and she reformed the tax system to make them more efficient. Papyrus documents from her reign show that she managed the country's grain production, a vital resource. She controlled coinage, issuing new currency with her own image, a powerful tool of propaganda. She also took steps to protect the Egyptian people from corrupt officials. One decree that has survived shows her giving special legal protections to farmers. These actions suggest a ruler who understood that her power depended on the stability and well-being of her kingdom. She was not simply draining its resources for her own pleasure. Cleopatra also understood the importance of religion in Egyptian society. Unlike many of her Ptolemaic ancestors, she actively embraced the role of a traditional pharaoh. She participated in Egyptian religious rituals and presented herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. Isis was one of the most important and beloved deities in Egypt. Isis, associated with magic. Isis, associated with fertility. Isis, associated with protection. By identifying with Isis, Cleopatra connected with her Egyptian subjects on a deep spiritual level. This was a masterful political strategy. It strengthened her legitimacy. It presented her not as a Greek foreigner, but as a divine ruler chosen by the gods to protect Egypt. This religious identity also had international appeal. The worship of Isis was spreading throughout the Roman world. By presenting herself as the living goddess, Cleopatra was creating a powerful personal brand that resonated beyond Egypt's borders. Her image as Isis appeared on coins and in official art. This was not just about personal vanity. It was a way of projecting an image of divine authority and power. It elevated her status from a mere client queen of Rome to a semi-divine figure in her own right. Her careful management of the economy and religion helped to stabilize Egypt and consolidate her power during a very turbulent period. Section 4. A new Roman alliance. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC was a disaster for Cleopatra. It threw the Roman world into chaos and robbed her of her most important protector. Her position, which had seemed so secure, was suddenly vulnerable again. With Caesar gone, his killers and his heirs began a new struggle for power. Cleopatra quickly and quietly left Rome and returned to Egypt. She needed to protect her kingdom. She needed to protect her son, Caesarion. Caesarion's claim as Caesar's child was now a dangerous political liability. Back in Alexandria, she acted decisively to consolidate her power. She had her younger brother and co-ruler, Ptolemy XIV, killed. This removed any potential rival. It made her son Caesarion her official co-regent. The Roman Republic descended into another civil war. The main factions were led by Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. They were led by Caesar's most loyal general, Mark Antony, and opposed by the men who had murdered Caesar. Cleopatra initially tried to remain neutral. Egypt was wealthy. Its fleet was powerful. Both sides wanted her support. She carefully played for time, waiting to see which side would emerge victorious. She knew that choosing the wrong ally could mean the end of her reign. Her primary goal was the preservation of Egypt's independence and the security of her dynasty. She was a queen first and foremost, and her decisions were guided by cold political calculation. Mark Antony eventually emerged as the dominant figure in the Eastern Roman world. The eastern territories included lands bordering Egypt. He was a charismatic and experienced military commander. He was known for his love of luxury and for grand gestures. In 41 BC, Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus, a city in modern-day Turkey. He wanted to question her about her loyalty during the Civil War. More importantly, he needed her financial support for a planned invasion of the Parthian Empire. This meeting was a critical test for Cleopatra. She had to win over another powerful Roman, just as she had with Caesar. Cleopatra did not come to Tarsus as a humble subordinate. She arrived in spectacular fashion, turning the summons into a demonstration of her own power and wealth. According to Plutarch, she sailed up the Cydnus River on a magnificent golden barge, purple sails, silver oars. She was dressed in the robes of the goddess Venus. She was surrounded by attendants dressed as cupids. She was surrounded by attendants dressed as nymphs. The entire city of Tarsus emptied to see the spectacle. Antony, left waiting on his official platform, was completely upstaged. This grand entrance was pure political theater. It was designed to present herself not as a client queen, but as a goddess coming to meet a god. Section 5. Cleopatra's meeting with Mark Antony in Tarsus was the beginning of a new alliance, one that would shape the fate of the ancient world. Just as with Caesar, the political partnership with Antony quickly became personal. Intelligence, wit, charm, immense wealth, power. He followed her back to Alexandria, spent the winter of 41 to 40 BC at her court. They formed a social club called the Inimitable Livers, lavish feasts and entertainments. To Roman enemies, this was proof of Antony's corruption by a foreign queen, but for them, it solidified their political and personal bond. Their alliance rested on mutual need and shared ambition. Antony needed Egyptian gold, grain, ships. Cleopatra needed Roman military protection and security for her children. They imagined a new Eastern Empire, a Rome-Egypt partnership. Cleopatra gave birth to twins, Alexander Helios, the sun, and Cleopatra Selene, the moon. Later, they would have another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. The children were central to their plans. The high point was a public ceremony in Alexandria in 34 BC. This became the Donations of Alexandria. In the city's gymnasium, Antony and Cleopatra sat on golden thrones. Cleopatra appeared as the goddess Isis. Antony declared Caesarion the true son and legal heir of Julius Caesar, a direct challenge to Octavian. He announced kingdoms for Cleopatra and their children. Cleopatra named Queen of Kings, Egypt, Cyprus, parts of Syria. Their children were also given grand titles. Alexander Helios was named King of Armenia, Parthia, and all lands east of the Euphrates. Ptolemy Philadelphus was made ruler of Syria and Asia Minor. Cleopatra Selene was given control of Cyrenaica and Libya. Most of these territories were not actually under Antony's control, declarations of intent. They outlined a plan for a new Hellenistic Eastern Empire under Rome's protection. For Octavian, this was betrayal. He used the donations as propaganda, portraying Antony as a traitor giving away Roman land to a foreign mistress. Section 6. The title Queen of Kings was more than just a flattering name. It was the culmination of Cleopatra's lifelong strategy. It defined her vision for her empire and her dynasty. From the moment she took the throne, she had fought to maintain Egypt's autonomy in a world increasingly dominated by Rome. Her alliances with Caesar and Antony were not signs of weakness, but pragmatic moves to achieve this goal. By securing this grand title, she was elevating herself and her kingdom. She was no longer just the ruler of Egypt, but an empress, a suzerain over other rulers who were her vassals. This was a direct challenge to Rome's claim to be the sole imperial power in the region. This new status was reflected in her official image. Coins minted during this period show her with the inscription, "For the Queen and Queen of Kings." Her public appearances, where she dressed as the goddess Isis, reinforced this idea of supreme, semi-divine authority. The donations of Alexandria were the blueprint for a new political order. In this vision, Antony would be the supreme Roman commander in the East, while Cleopatra and her children would rule a vast Hellenistic empire as his partners. Alexandria, not Rome, would be the capital of this new Eastern power bloc. It was an audacious and revolutionary plan that aimed to shift the center of gravity of the Mediterranean world. This ambition was a direct threat to Octavian in Rome. He was methodically consolidating his power in the West and presenting himself as the defender of traditional Roman values. He used Antony and Cleopatra's partnership as his most potent weapon of propaganda. He painted Antony as a man who had abandoned his Roman heritage. He claimed Antony was bewitched by a dangerous foreign sorceress who planned to move the capital of the Roman Empire to Alexandria and rule over Romans. He portrayed Cleopatra as the ultimate enemy, a greedy, power-hungry, morally corrupt woman who threatened the very fabric of Roman society. Octavian's propaganda campaign was incredibly effective. It stirred up fear and resentment against the foreign queen and her Roman partner. The Roman Senate, under Octavian's influence, was persuaded to strip Antony of his powers and officially declare war. Crucially, they did not declare war on Antony, but on Cleopatra. This was a clever political move. It framed the conflict not as another Roman civil war, but as a patriotic war against a foreign enemy. The final, epic confrontation was now inevitable. The stage was set for a battle that would decide not only the fate of Cleopatra and Antony, but the future of Rome and the entire Mediterranean world. Section 1. The war between Octavian and the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra came to a head in 31 BC. The decisive confrontation took place at sea, off the western coast of Greece. It was near a promontory called Actium. This was not just a battle for territory, it was a battle for the soul of the Roman world. On one side, Octavian, the traditional power of Rome. On the other, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, a Hellenistic vision for the East. Their massive fleet gathered in the Gulf of Ambracia. It included many of Cleopatra's powerful Egyptian warships. They prepared for a naval struggle that would decide the Mediterranean. Antony's ships were larger, heavier, like floating fortresses. Octavian's, under Marcus Agrippa, were smaller, faster, more maneuverable. For weeks, Agrippa blockaded Antony's fleet inside the Gulf. Inside Antony's camp, the mood grew desperate. Supplies were running low. Disease spread among the crews. Many Roman soldiers and senators began to doubt Antony's leadership. They resented fighting alongside a foreign queen against fellow Romans. Some defected to Octavian, giving him intelligence. Antony and Cleopatra decided to break the blockade. On September 2nd, 31 BC, their fleet sailed out to meet Octavian. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Antony and Cleopatra's heavy ships struggled as Agrippa's lighter vessels darted and attacked. Agrippa used his light ships to surround Antony's larger warships, isolating them and attacking with fire and projectiles. The fight hung in the balance for hours. Then, a critical moment. Cleopatra's squadron of 60 ships, held in reserve, suddenly raised sail and broke the line. This was not simple cowardice, as Roman propaganda later claimed. Her ships carried the war treasury, and the move was likely part of a prearranged plan. Their strategy: break through with the most important force and regroup elsewhere. Antony saw her leaving, abandoned his flagship, boarded a smaller, faster ship, and followed her. His flight demoralized the fleet. Many commanders surrendered, and the remaining ships were defeated or destroyed. The Battle of Actium was a catastrophic loss. Antony and Cleopatra escaped, but their army and most of their navy were gone. Their dream of an Eastern empire had been shattered. After the disaster at Actium, Antony and Cleopatra fled back to Egypt. They knew Octavian would follow. Their alliance was broken. Their political power was gone. Their military power was gone. Antony fell into a deep depression, brooding alone over his defeat. Cleopatra, however, did not give up. She was a mother. She was a queen. She fought to the very end to save her kingdom and to save her children. She tried to negotiate with Octavian. She offered to abdicate in favor of her children. She hoped he might spare her dynasty, even if she herself was doomed. But Octavian refused any deal. He wanted total victory. In summer 30 BC, Octavian's legions invaded Egypt. They met little resistance. Many of Antony's remaining soldiers deserted and joined Octavian. As Octavian neared Alexandria, a false rumor claimed Cleopatra had killed herself. Antony, believing her dead, was overcome with grief. He asked his servant to kill him. The servant killed himself instead. Antony then stabbed himself. The wound was mortal but not instantly fatal. He was carried bleeding and in agony to Cleopatra's fortified mausoleum. Cleopatra and her attendants hoisted the dying Antony up through a window into her refuge. He died in her arms. A tragic end to their partnership. Days later, Octavian entered Alexandria as conqueror. He captured Cleopatra and held her under guard. He planned to parade her in Rome as his ultimate prize. Cleopatra pleaded with him, but he was unmovable. He intended to lead her through Rome in chains. Determined to avoid that disgrace, she refused to be a spectacle for the Roman mob. She wanted to control her own death. According to Plutarch, she smuggled in a basket of figs. Hidden beneath the fruit was an asp, an Egyptian cobra. On August 10th, 30 BC, after writing a final letter to Octavian, she put on her finest royal robes. She allowed the snake to bite her. The last pharaoh was dead. Her death ended her dynasty and Egypt's independence. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. Octavian, soon to be renamed Augustus, was the undisputed master of the Roman world. He had won the war, and now he had to win the peace. A crucial part of this was controlling the historical narrative. He needed to justify his war against Antony and legitimize his own power. To do this, he launched a powerful propaganda campaign that turned Cleopatra into the villain of the story. Roman writers, poets, and historians began to craft a very specific image of the dead queen. This was the beginning of the myth that has overshadowed her real story for centuries. In this Roman version of history, Cleopatra was not an intelligent and capable ruler. Instead, she was portrayed as an exotic and decadent foreign seductress. They claimed she used magic and sexual charms to ensnare noble Roman men like Antony. They described her as lazy, lustful, and power-hungry. The poet Horace called her a fatal monster, while Propertius wrote of a whore queen. This character assassination served a clear political purpose. It transformed a Roman civil war into a noble defense of Rome against a dangerous foreign threat. It made Antony a weak-willed victim, rather than a political rival, and it made Octavian the savior of the Republic. This biased portrayal was incredibly successful. The image of the wicked siren of the Nile became the accepted truth. Later Roman historians like Cassius Dio repeated and embellished these stories. They focused on dramatic, romantic episodes like the carpet incident and her lavish lifestyle, while ignoring her administrative skills and political acumen. When Shakespeare wrote his play Antony and Cleopatra over 1600 years later, he based it on these Roman sources. His brilliant play cemented the image of Cleopatra as a tragic heroine, a woman whose overwhelming passion led to her downfall. The focus was on love and tragedy, not politics and power. Over the centuries, this romanticized and often negative image has been repeated in countless paintings, poems, operas, and films. artists and writers have been more interested in the drama of her love affairs and her dramatic death than in the complexities of her reign. Hollywood, in particular, has favored the image of the glamorous seductress, often played by beautiful actresses in spectacular costumes. As a result, the powerful propaganda created by her enemy, Octavian, continues to shape our popular understanding of her today. The real Cleopatra, the skilled politician, the brilliant linguist, the competent administrator, and the last pharaoh of Egypt, has been buried under layers of myth. We have journeyed through the life of Cleopatra, peeling back the layers of myth to find the real woman. The popular image is one of a beautiful seductress, a queen defined by her love affairs with two powerful Romans. This version of her story, born from the propaganda of her enemies, has been told and retold for over 2,000 years. It is a dramatic tale of passion and tragedy, but it is not the whole truth. It is a reflection distorted by the mirror of history, which is often held by the victors. The stories focused on her beauty and her love life, conveniently ignoring the aspects of her character that were truly formidable, and to her rivals, truly threatening. The historical evidence paints a very different and far more impressive picture. Cleopatra was not simply a pawn in the games of powerful men. She was a skilled and ambitious political player in her own right. Daring return hidden in a carpet, strategic alliance with Caesar, strategic alliance with Antony. Her actions were those of a determined leader fighting for survival. Brilliant linguist, hands-on administrator who reformed the economy, ruler who embraced Egyptian culture to strengthen her connection to her people. She was the commander of a powerful navy and the architect of a bold vision for a new Eastern Empire. This was the woman her Roman enemies feared. They did not fear her beauty. They feared her intelligence and her political ambition. They feared that her partnership with Mark Antony could create a rival power center in the East, with Alexandria as its capital. They feared her son Caesarion, the living embodiment of a link between Egypt's dynasty and the legacy of Julius Caesar. To defeat her, they first had to discredit her. They created a caricature of a wicked, manipulative foreign queen. This propaganda was so effective that it has defined her legacy for centuries, making it difficult for us to see the capable monarch she truly was. Therefore, when we think of Cleopatra, we must always ask which version of her we are seeing. Are we seeing the fatal monster created by Roman poets to serve a political agenda? Are we seeing the tragic lover crafted by Shakespeare for the stage? Or are we seeing the ruler who governed one of the ancient world's richest kingdoms for over 2 decades? By summarizing her life, we can see the stark contrast between the myth and the reality. The real Cleopatra was not just a character in a romance. She was the central protagonist in a story of power, politics, and the clash of empires. Understanding the real story of Cleopatra is more than an academic exercise. It enriches our view of history and offers lessons still relevant today. Her life shows how history is shaped by those who control the narrative. Octavian's version of events uses propaganda to destroy an enemy's reputation and to legitimize his own authority. That should remind us to be critical of sources and to question stories presented as simple facts. Ask who is telling the story and why. Cleopatra's case shows how the historical record can be manipulated. Her reign challenges assumptions about women and power. She ruled in a world dominated by men. She commanded armies, she managed an economy, and she negotiated with the most powerful figures of her time. She wasn't powerful because of beauty, but because of intellect, education, and political skill. Focusing only on romance diminishes her achievements. Reclaiming her political career reveals someone who defied conventions. She is a complex example of female leadership. Her struggle was also a nation's struggle to stay independent against a rising superpower. She used every tool at her disposal: diplomacy, wealth, strategic alliances, and cultural influence to protect her kingdom. Her failure doesn't erase the importance of her effort. It's a timeless story about hard choices leaders face under overwhelming pressure. It's about geopolitics, sovereignty, and the fight to preserve a culture and way of life. A balanced view doesn't ruin the romance, it deepens it. The real woman was more complex, more intelligent, more formidable than the myth. She was a ruler, a mother, a goddess to her people, and a brilliant political strategist, nearly changing history. Look past the legends and you find a truly impressive human being. Her legacy is not just love and death, but resilience, intelligence, and the enduring fight for power. That is a story worth remembering.